everybody, it's Caleb using the correct microphone this time. I have a book called 3 Days Dead, a Donald Youngblood mystery by Keith Donnelly, which I was flipping through this to see how many pages until I hit the end of chapter 3, and I found out that this book is not only locally printed from Gatlinburg, but it's also written by a local boy from Johnson City. So this should be interesting. Back to the cover. There's really nothing to say about this cover. Granted, I don't live on the plateau, so I don't know anything about what the plateau looks like. Like, I've been to Nashville a few times for MTAC, but that's about it. To me, it looks like a car driving down the desert highway and nothing interesting is going on. It's a really boring cover. Whoever he's got, or whoever the guys making the book have to make a front cover, they really, really need somebody new with more imagination. Because I don't know what this is, but it's dumb. So the back cover is just more talking about the book before this. 3 Deuces Down was such fun to read. P. Buckley Moss, artist. Big surprises in debut whodunit. Donnelly finds right blend of action and action characters. Somebody paraphrased what this guy said into fragments, but okay. Edward Clarkton, Boston Now. A high-stakes conflict ensues, where cunning is just as crucial to staying alive as dexterity and sweat. The forthcoming second Donald Young mystery, 3 Days Dead, can't arrive soon enough. Midwest Book Review. Donnelly's words are breezy, with lots of dialogue. His characters are funny and romantic. Not this shit again. Joe Tennis, Bristol, VA, Herald Courier. 3 Deuces, sorry, I lost my announcer voice. 3 Deuces Down is a fast-paced, page-turning book that readers might compare with John Grissom's novels. No heavy lifting, but a book you won't want to put down. Joe Bindle, the Tennessean. Yeah, let's see about this. Now, it says inside that this was published thanks to a Gatlinburg company. But down here, this says it's distributed from a place in North Carolina. Well, just because it's publisher. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure on book language lingo. I just read these things. Inside flap. When Tennessean private investigator Donald Youngblood solved the Fairchild case, he vowed never again to go hunting for a missing person. With live-in love and mountain center cop, Mary Sanders, and his faithful black standard poodle, Jake, Don's life has settled back into old routine. All of that is about to change. A very young, very pretty, and very persuasive blue-eyed blonde female shows up in his office one morning, needing help finding her missing mother. Now Don must track down a mother gone wrong. A mother gone wrong? While trying to find her abandoned daughter a proper home before child welfare gets the scent. To complicate matters, an old flame, Sandy Smith, is being harassed by a former boyfriend, who is not what he appears to be, and Sandy is begging Don to do something about it. Tracking down the missing mother with the help of his best friend and partner, Billy Two Feathers, really, and Don's ever-dangerous new friend, Roy Husky, really. The trail clues leads to a Las Vegas confrontation where Don comes face to face with the evil henchman of Vegas bad boy Victor Vargas. What? And nearly pays the ultimate prize. Why are you summarizing the entire book for me? Like, it should tell me what the book is about, not the entire plot of the book. Back flap. Keith Donnelly was born and raised in Johnson City, Tennessee, where he attended Science Hill High School. He graduated from East Tennessee State University with a degree in economics and soon found himself in the New York City world of publishing, as a book manufacturing sales representative. In 1992, Donnelly moved from Wilton, Connecticut to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, where he opened the Southeast sales office for the Maple Vale Book Manufacturing Group, a job he still holds. 3 Days Dead is the second book in his Donald Youngblood mystery series. Donnelly still resides in Gatlinburg with his wife, Tessa. He is currently working on the third Donald Youngblood mystery. And, of course, it's got a prologue. We all know how I feel about prologues, especially if it's a book that's bad. The autumn of my senior year in college was a glorious explosion of colors on the University of Connecticut Storrs campus. The leaves of early October were a powerful testimony of a force far greater than mortal man. I smiled at the thought as I walked across campus, Donald Youngblood, philosopher. I was headed for the grill to meet Billy Two Feathers, a full-blood Cherokee Indian, and my best friend, when I was distracted by a confrontation between an upperclassman I vaguely knew and did not like, and a first-semester freshman. This was Rat Week, when all incoming freshmen were expected to wear rat hats, and, within reason, to do the bidding of upperclassmen. Darrell Osgood IV was an arrogant, self-important rich kid who acted like he owned the campus and could do as he pleased. Though he was about my height, Darrell was slight of frame. He had the pale-skinned, dark-haired look of the pampered rich. In my junior year, he had been in one of my upper-level economics classes, and I took pleasure stomping on some of his outrageous theories. As I approached, I heard foul language and witnessed a shove. That was enough. Youngblood to the rescue. I closed the gap between us. Do you always think of yourself as a superhero? 'Cause that's the vibe I'm getting, a superhero vibe. Like I live in my own fantasy world, and these are the random thoughts I have. What's going on, Darrell? I said pleasantly. This rat doesn't know the fight song, Darrell snarled, as only the snooty upper class can. Is that right, Rat? I asked. Yes, sir, the freshman answered. He was a little guy about 5'8", and could not have weighed more than 130 pounds, soaking wet. His rat hat sat atop his light brown hair like a beckoning, cruel upperclassman. His brown eyes peered through John Lennon-style wide-rimmed glasses. I sensed that he was a couple of harsh words from a total breakdown. Total geek, I thought. Yes, stereotypical geek. Thank you, Ryder. Shame on you, Darrell, I said, still keeping my pleasant demeanor. That's no way to treat an incoming freshman. I turned to the rat. What's your name, Rat? Timothy Brentwood, sir, he said enthusiastically, sensing he may have found an ally. Well, Mr. Timothy Brentwood, you will meet me here tomorrow at this very spot at noon and sing the University of Connecticut fight song for me. Yes, sir. Butt out, Youngblood. This is none of your affair, Darrell hissed. I moved closer to Darrell and said with a low, threatening whisper in his left ear, Oh, but it is, Darrell. In case you haven't heard, the University of Connecticut upperclassmen do not mistreat incoming freshmen. If you don't know now, I'll not only kick your ass, I'll report you to the Dean of Students. Because if he's a rich kid, what's that going to matter? He'll just pay the dean off. He was bullying a guy. Well, he donated some money, so I don't give a shit anymore. I mean, the only time that wouldn't work is if you got the FBI involved. I would know this, 'cause this was a thing that happened. You can look it up. Darrell went slightly paler than he already was. I thought he might actually cry. From fear or rage, I was not quite sure. You'll regret this, Youngblood, he whispered back, and turned to walk away, because I refer to people by their last names only. I grabbed his arm for one parting shot. If you cause this freshman any more grief, Darrell, you will be the one with regrets. Darrell broke free of my grip and left as if his pants were on fire. I turned to Timothy Brentwood. Are you called Timothy or Tim? I asked. Tim, sir. I don't know why we keep saying sir, but maybe that's a requirement. I don't know. Well, Tim, you have made an upperclassman friend, and for an incoming freshman, that's a good thing to have. And any enemy of Darrell Osgood the Fourth is a friend of mine. My name is Don Youngblood, and if you need anything, look for me in the college grill or the economics department. If I'm not asleep, I'll probably be at one of those two places. I do suggest that you steer clear of Darrell, and I do suggest you learn the fight song. Either that or take that stupid hat off and pretend you're a sophomore. Forget tomorrow at noon. I have better things to do than listen to a rat sing the fight song. Tim smiled. Thank you, sir. I have to go. I'm late for class. I watched as Tim Brentwood walked away hatless in the opposite direction from Darrell Osgood. Fast learner. Welcome to UConn, I thought. Billy was waiting for me in the grill. 6'6", he was hard to miss. Billy was sure to be a staple of the upcoming edition of the UConn basketball team, ranked number 1 in the preseason polls. Jim Clausen, Connecticut's coach, was famous for going to the far corners of the world to find basketball recruits. No one was surprised when he took the best that the Cherokee Nation had to offer, though Billy was anything but a typical Cherokee Indian. Billy had grown up in Wilton, Connecticut, adopted by a wealthy, childless white family. I had met his parents for the first time during a short break our freshman year when Billy asked me to go home with him. His parents were loving and caring and downplayed their obvious wealth. I was impressed with the number of books, pictures, and artifacts in their home that dealt with everything Cherokee. Billy later told me that his parents took great pride in teaching him about his heritage. You're late, Billy said. It was not an accusation as much as a statement of curiosity. I was almost always on time. Had to rescue a rat, I said. A what? An incoming freshman. A rat. The two-legged variety? He just states instead of asking it as a question. Exactly. What happened? Billy asked. I told him about my encounter with Darrell Osgood the Fourth and Timothy Brentwood. I never did like that guy. I may have to have a little talk with Darrell, Billy said. A little talk meant Billy would probably scare Darrell into wetting his pants. Billy was a mother hen. He felt he had to protect me. At nearly 6'2" and rather solidly built, if I did say so myself, and I did not feel I needed protecting. Stay out of it, I said. I can handle Darrell Osgood the Fourth, Billy smiled. A few days after the incident— What? Does this serve a point, or is this just character introductions? Because I really could not give a care less. A few days after the incident with Darrell Osgood the Fourth and the freshman rat, I was in the college grill a few minutes past 6 in the morning. I was alone in the far corner with a USA Today and a cup of coffee loaded with half and sugar. Autumn meant college football, and being a native Tennessean, I was very interested in the latest edition of the Volunteers football team. Undefeated and ranked number 5 in I mean, go UT, go Vols! Okay, that was okay. I'll try to come. Sure they are. Sure they are. Sure they are. Let's try to read this straight now. I was very interested in the latest edition of the Volunteers football team, undefeated and ranked number 5 in the country. Not bad, I thought. Not even close, said Caleb. The shadow that fell across my newspaper would compare to a total eclipse of the sun. I looked up. I was staring into the biggest University of Connecticut varsity football jacket I had ever seen. Mount Everest in blue and white leather. Farther up this mountain, resting on a pair of massive shoulders, sat a head adorned with a blonde flat top. Pale blue eyes stared out of his head and down at me. "You're Youngblood," the mountain said. "And you are Bruiser Backman," I said, remaining seated. I knew Bruiser by sight, but I did not know him personally. He was an offensive lineman on the football team, which meant he was probably mean and slow. Bruiser was approximately 6'4" and weighed somewhere in the vicinity of a compact car. "Look, guy, not all of you, and not every guy in this book is 6 foot something. Some people are normal 5 heights. Not everybody can be 6 foot something. Okay? Okay." And weighed somewhere in the vicinity of a compact car. "I heard you were picking on one of my brothers," he said casually. I was encouraged that there did not seem to be menace in his voice. "I didn't know you had a brother, fraternity brother," Bruiser said. "And who might that be?" I asked, though I already had a pretty good idea. "Darrell Olson," he said. "You mean Darrell Olson the Fourth, don't you?" I cracked. A small smile curled at the corner of Bruiser's mouth. "Yeah, that's who I mean." I smiled back at Bruiser, hoping he was here only to deliver a message. "I'm here to scare you and mess you up a little for picking on fraternity brother," he said, emphasizing fraternity. I stood. If I had to defend myself against this incredible hulk, I would need to rely on my quickness. Bruiser smiled. "You scared?" "Shitless," I said, and I halfway meant it. "Then consider yourself properly reprimanded," Bruiser said. "Mind if I get a cup of coffee and join you? Be my guest." I'm glad this guy is just like, he's kind of a dick. I don't really give a shit. Whatever. I know he's an asshole. This guy's cool. Bruiser returned with coffee and 3 small containers of half and half. He added raw sugar from the holder on the table. Mixed in half and half, and stirred. I still liked my coffee the same way. I liked my coffee the same way. He took a sip and made an approving sound. "Nothing like that first sip of the day," he said. "Couldn't agree more," I said. Bruiser took a more aggressive drink. "Tell me why darling Darrell wanted me to mess you up." I told him the story I now referred to as "That Rat and the Rich Kid." When I finished, Bruiser smiled. "I always hated that pasty-faced prick," he said. "Don't worry, Darrell won't be picking on any more freshmen." "If you had no intention of messing me up, why are you here?" "Long story. Normally, our fraternity wouldn't give a guy like me a second look. I come from a blue-collar family, and most of the brothers are rich kids. But I was on a football scholarship and had decent grades, and I think they brought me in to be the fraternity enforcer. We have quite a few geeks who from time to time do need some protecting. I don't just go out and beat people up. I try to get both sides of the story and act accordingly. If a brother is out of line, I'll go back and have a little talk with him. If the offending party is out of line, I issue a warning." Bruiser paused and smiled. A warning is usually all it takes." "I bet. In your case, I guess that Darrell was being a prick. Besides, if I messed with you, I would get a visit from Billy, and that could get ugly." "I don't let Billy fight my fights," I said, a little annoyed. "Probably not," he said. "You look like you could take care of yourself. But do you think you could stop Billy from paying me a visit if he wanted to?" I thought about it for a few seconds. "Probably not," I said. "Well, there you go." Bruiser and I spent the next half hour getting to know each other. He had grown up in a coal mining town in Pennsylvania and watched his father slowly commit suicide, working day after day and year after year in the mines. Because it sounds like it's a legitimate job that maybe he was happy doing, because some people probably like doing that, but is it a lot of hard work? Yeah. Can you die from doing that? Yeah. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. I'm pretty sure it's not comparable to suicide. He vowed not to end up like that, so while other coal miners' kids were out raising hell, Bruiser played football, lifted weights, and hit the books. Bruiser was just a notch below what it took to play for major college football power, So when Connecticut offered him a scholarship, he jumped at it. Bruiser looked at his watch. "Got to get to class," he said. "Nice talk to you." "You too," I said. Bruiser pushed away from the table, stood, and smiled. "You have my permission to kick the shit out of Darrell Osgood IV any time the need arises." "Thanks," I grinned. "I'll keep that in mind." The need to kick the shit out of Darrell never did materialize. Darrell Osgood IV stayed clear of me and the rest of my senior year. I met Bruiser from time to time in the grill where we had coffee and explored the meaning of life. The following year, Bruiser was taken in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. He had a decent but short career as an offensive lineman for the Washington Redskins. After that, I lost track of him. And I swear to God this better have a point. Otherwise, aside from introducing some characters, that was completely pointless. I was in the office early on Monday, an unusually cold day for April. Billy had not yet made an appearance. Jake, my black standard poodle, was curled up on his bed in the corner of my office, the inner office. The sign on the outer office door read, "Cherokee Investigations, Donald Youngblood and Bill T. Feathers, Private Investigators." You couldn't come up with a better name than that. You just said it was Cherokee Investigations, which I read as Investigators instead. You could not come up with a better name than that, really. Billy and I didn't start out as licensed private investigators. We were basically just hanging out when we got our licenses. Then we got our licenses, and in the years that followed, a lot of people began to take us seriously. A few ended up dead. A few even ended up dead. There, I got the line out. I didn't need the money, but I did want to help people. Becoming a private investigator seemed the perfect occupation to help people while creating a little excitement in my once dreary life. In the previous 6 months, I had found plenty of excitement, but that's another story. Meaning read book 1. I heard the outer office door open. Jake raised his head and growled his less threatening growl. "Hello?" A female voice, young, I thought. "In here," I called out. Seconds later, a young girl, 14 or 15 maybe, stood in my doorway. She was wearing blue jeans, beat-up tennis shoes, a navy pea coat that was too big for her, and a wool cap. She looked rather unkempt. Pulling off the cap to reveal thick blonde hair cut short, she stared at me with piercing blue eyes. Those eyes looked old beyond her years. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I need you to find someone," she said. "Who?" I asked. "My mom." "Sit down," I said, motioning to a chair. "How long has your mother been missing?" "A week." "A week? Who's been taking care of you?" "I could take care of myself," she said with attitude. I didn't doubt it. Something about this young lady suggested experience. Her mother was gone for a week, and yet I saw no panic. There was a matter-of-fact calmness behind those eyes that made me assume she had seen more and coped with a lot more than was normal for her age. I let the comment pass and stared at her in silence. "How old are you?" "I'll be 14 my next birthday," she said with the same brashness. "How did you hear about me?" I asked. "I didn't. You're the only private investigator in the phone book. I did hear that you might have been the one who shot that bad guy at the police station." "Well, so much for my sterling reputation." "Just a rumor," I said. "He was actually killed with a knife." "I heard that too," she said. "Rumors travel fast in a small town." The news of a dead body in the local police station had spread like wildfire throughout a drought-ridden forest. "Will you do it?" she asked. "I'll pay you whatever it costs, even if it takes me 10 years. She handed me a roll of bills. "Down payment." I unrolled the wad and quickly counted over $100. "What's your name?" "Lacey," she said, "with a Y. Lacey Malone. Born Lauren Lacey Malone. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" "It does," I said. "This is a lot of money, Lacey. Where did you get it?" "Saved it from my odd jobs. Cleaning houses mostly. Some gardening work. I'm good with flowers and plants. Took me a year to save that." I handed it back to her. Keep it for now. You may need it. Now sit down, relax, and tell me your story. Tell me everything you can think of. I got plenty of time. Even though it says I have plenty of time, I've read that wrong. She took a deep breath and started her story. I sat back and listened. Lacey Malone was born in East Tennessee to an unwed 17-year-old named Tracy Malone. Lacey had no idea who her father was, and the birth certificate she carried with her confirmed that the father of Lauren Lacey Malone was indeed unknown. A few odd comments over the years had led Lacey to believe that her mother knew who her father was, but did not want to tell her. Lacey and her mother had lived with her grandmother in the grandmother's house during Lacey's preschool years. The house was a few miles outside Mountain Center. Her grandmother had died 2 years ago of a heart attack. Oh, that's upsetting. Lacey's mother worked as a waitress in Newport. Okay. They got by okay, as her mother had inherited the grandmother's house free and clear of any debt. Well, that's good. As well as some other money. The status quo held until about 6 months ago, when her mother was persuaded by a friend to take a job as a dancer at a topless bar outside of Knoxville. Okay. The Bloody Bear, it was called. I don't know if that's a real topless bar. I'm probably not. The money was so good it was hard to pass up, but problems ensued. Her mother, quite a looker according to Lacey, started spiraling out of control. Booze, drugs, and staying out all night had turned her mother into someone she did not know. Finally, last week, her mother had packed up, left a note, and vanished while Lacey was at school. Lacey handed me the one-line note. It said, "You are old enough to take care of yourself." "Why do you want to find her?" I asked. "She used to be a good person, and she's probably hooked on drugs now and needs help. I have heard about rehab programs. I want to get her into one of those so I can have my mom back." Her cool demeanor was starting to crack as her eyes glistened. Damn. I did not deal well with adult female tears. Adolescent female tears were even worse. I felt the urge to hold her and tell her everything was going to be all right, but I didn't. I had no idea if everything was going to be all right. This is when you say, "I'm going to do my best. No guarantees, but I'm going to do my best." If I can turn the page. Come on, turn the page. I can't turn the page. There we go. Oh wow, the chapters are ordered weird. You know how like in books, typically they'll just stop once you get to the end of the chapter, and then on the very next page you have the, chapter 2. Well, instead of doing that, they just on the same page it stops, and then you get like this big space area, number 2, big space area, and it goes right into chapter 2. But anyway, any idea where she went? None. "Give me $10, I said. Lacey peeled a $10 bill off her roll and handed it to me without question. She had a puzzled look on her face. "You have just retained my services," I said. "How can I get in touch with you?" She smiled and handed me a slip of folded notebook paper with her name, address, and cell phone number. Everybody had a cell phone these days, even middle schoolers. I have to get to school," she said. "Want a ride?" "Sure." We left Jake in dreamland, chasing rabbits. Apparently the dog fell asleep. Just in case you wanted to know, the dog fell asleep, so we left him at the office. I dropped Lacey off at Mountain Center Middle School and pondered my present dilemma while driving back to the office. Lacey was in the 8th grade, a point in her life when youth would collide with adolescence and create all kinds of interesting side effects, emotional and physical. It was not a time to be living alone and unsupervised, no matter how mature she was for her age. It was plain to see she was going to be a very attractive teenager, drawing young males like a magnet. In one sense, it was none of my business. In another, I had encountered a youth in distress, and I felt bound to do something about it. Because, it's not like at 14, regardless of these facts, she still has a head on her shoulders and be like, Yeah, but no. Some people have morals, and it doesn't matter how young they are, they're not going to overstep them. Some people are very loose with their morals, and even if they have parent supervision, they'll do it anyway. It's not like it makes a difference if they have guidance or not. It matters what they themselves think. Okay. I knew I couldn't leave this alone. If I called the so-called authorities, Lacey would end up with foster parents, and that was a crapshoot I was willing to gamble on only as a last resort. No, and no. Her mother has been missing for a week. The first thing she should have done, and the same thing goes for you, is call the cops. And if they put her in child services, that's actually a good thing, because then somebody can watch her, take care of her, and make sure she has everything she needs while the investigation's underway. It is not your place or her place to decide if her mother is fit to continue to take care of her. You can't do that. You're breaking the law and putting a child in danger. I don't care how old she is, you're putting her in danger. Also, I'm pretty sure the police will think highly of your thoughts to them. I picked up my cell phone and called one of my two best friends in the world. Mountain Center Police Department. Hi, Susie, I said. Let me speak to Big Bob. Hey, Donnie, said Susie. How you doing? Very well, thank you. And yourself? Great. Hang on. Susie was Big Bob's sister. Because that's how shit at a police station works. What's up? The big baritone voice boomed. Big Bob Wilson, high school best friend and basketball star. He was now the main defender of law and order in Mountain Center. Having a well-connected law officer was one of your best friends, and was blah 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 blah. Having a well-connected law officer was one of your best friends was not all a bad thing, especially if you were a private investigator. Big Bob knew almost everyone and everything going on in Mountain Center. Meet me at the diner for breakfast, I said. I'm buying. When? 10 minutes. Or whenever you get there, I said. I'll be there, said the big man, and he hung up. I drove back to my office building and parked in my usual place in the back. The Mountain Center diner was 2 blocks from my office, and the walk took only a few minutes. I had my own table in the back, and Doris Black, the owner, made sure that no one sat there until after I left, or 9 o'clock, whichever came first. Doris always waited on me personally, ever since they started giving her tips on various stocks that were outperforming the market. Having spent 5 years on Wall Street before returning to the safety of my hometown, I felt as qualified as anyone to hand out sage advice on the fickle market. Although she never told me how much she invested from my tips, I knew it was considerable, and I knew she had made a nice return. From time to time I gave Dolores tidbits, and she always followed up with a purchase. Good morning, Mr. Youngblood, smiled Dolores. Yes, Dolores. Smiled Doris. Doris considered me a celebrity because I had worked on Wall Street, and I could not get her to call me Dawn. I gave up trying years ago and just enjoyed the status. Good morning, Doris. What'll it be? I'm waiting for Big Bob, so I'll just take coffee for now, I answered. You got it, she said as she wrote on her pad and scurried off. Doris reminded me of Shirley Booth on the old Hazel TV show. Doris was in her mid-50s, slightly overweight and attractive in a matronly sort of way. Her husband had died many years ago, and she had 2 grown sons who had moved away, and another who was a senior in high school, headed for the University of Tennessee on a golf scholarship. The diner was her life, and she loved seeing all of her regulars. Doris had a great sense of humor and was always cheerful. I felt honored to call her a friend. She scurried back with the pre-owned USA Today, laid it on my table, and hurried off again. I located the sports page. Baseball season had just started. Once upon a time, I had been an avid fan of baseball in general, and the Cincinnati Reds in particular. But free agency strikes and outrageous salaries had soured my outlook on our national pastime. After the last strike, I had vowed never to watch another game on TV, and so far I had fulfilled that vow. I had always enjoyed reading the sports page of breakfast, and I still looked at the Major League's box scores, although I did not recognize many of the players. The Reds were predicted to battle the Pirates for the cellar of the National League Central, which further dampened any spark of enthusiasm I might muster. The diner got suddenly quiet. I looked up to see Chief of Police walking toward my table. Big Bob Wilson had arrived for breakfast. "Hey, Blood," he said. As he sat, the diner buzz resumed. "How's it going?" Same old," Big Bob said. "What's on your mind? Let's order first." I nodded at Doris, who rushed over, ordered my favorite, feta cheese omelet, sausage patties, home fries, and rye toast. I don't know about eating rye. I don't think I've ever had rye. Big Bob ordered pancakes, bacon, and a side of home fries. Mountain Center Diner home fries were legendary. I filled the void with local sports chatter while waiting on breakfast and getting to the point of my meeting with the big man. "I need to talk to you off the record," I said. "You cannot hear this as the Chief of Police." He glared. "I am the Chief of Police." I stared back in silence. "Okay," he said finally. "You going to tell me about Ronnie Fairchild?" "No," I said, "something else." "When am I going to hear about Ronnie?" Big Bob said as breakfast arrived. "Another time," I said, as I took my first bite of omelet. And now I'm like, who the fuck is Ronnie Fairchild? "Another time," I said as I took my first bite of omelet. "I've got to put some distance between me and the Fairchild case before I'm ready to talk about it. I guess that's maybe from the first book." "Okay, let me hear what's on your mind," Big Bob said, attacking the pancakes. Between bites, I told him what I knew so far about Lacey. He listened as he ate. There was no expression on his face that let me know what he was thinking. He gave me an occasional nod. I think he blinked a couple of times. "What do you think?" I asked as he finished breakfast, leaving a good quantity of home fries. "Well, I don't think she should be living alone," he said. "For one thing, it isn't safe. You have to find her a place to stay with an adult, or I'll blow the whistle to social services." "So much for off the record," I said. "Don't give me that shit, Donald," Big Bob said. "You knew I couldn't let this slide." We called each other Donald and Robert only when we were pissed or wanted to get the other's undivided attention. Big Bob was slightly pissed. As he should be, and I wouldn't say pissed. I went over this before. I'm not going over it again. Screw that. Big Bob's beeper vibrated on his belt. He snapped it off and took a look. He then picked up his coffee cup and drained it. "Gotta go," he said. "You've got 3 days to work this out, and then I'm going to have to make it official." I nodded. "And thanks for breakfast," he said. The big man turned and walked through the diner and out the front door. A couple of dozen sets of eyes followed his exit. I finished the last of my breakfast and went back to the office. Why not just set her up with one of her friends and her friends' parents? Surely she has a very close friend, somebody she can go and stay with while the investigation's happening. Not that difficult. Less than a year ago, I was a confirmed bachelor drifting from relationship to relationship with some very fine women. These women all had one thing in common. They were husband hunting. I was the dashing ex-Wall Street whiz kid turned private eye with one particular mission in life, not to get married. Sandy Smith had been the latest in the string of these nice ladies to issue an ultimatum. When I swallowed hard and went suddenly mute, she packed up and ran off to Atlanta to pursue her career and continue husband hunting. Okay, look. There are women who, before anything, want to marry you. There are women, before anything, don't want to marry you. If you want some hanky-panky, and she wants a wedding ring, well, I don't think you get that hanky-panky, because if you don't want to give her a wedding ring, then you might as well go right out the fucking door. Stop being an asshole. Okay? Okay. From time to time, we exchanged emails. She now had another guy on the hook. Who probably actually said yes to her when she's like, would you marry me? And I don't know what your problem is. If you don't want to get married, you tell them that. If they do, well, I don't think the relationship is going to work out. Because they're wanting something long-lasting and stable, and you're just looking for a fling. Anyway, my resolve to stay unattached began to waver when I was hired as a bodyguard for a Knoxville police officer wounded in action and still being stalked by a very bad guy. Billy and I had livened things up a bit by capturing her stalker and delivering him to the Mountain Center police station. Why? It's a Knoxville police officer. This is probably a crime occurring in Knoxville. Why would they go to a completely different city's police station? I ended up helping dispose of the bad guy and falling in love with the good girl. Dispose how? How are we disposing of him? That's not a term you use for putting a guy in jail. Like, seriously. Luckily, she felt the same way about me, so much so that she agreed to give up the excitement of the Knoxville police force for the boredom of the Mountain Center police force. Mary Sanders was now a fixture in my life, and I couldn't have been happier. I was still wondering what happened. I called Mary on her cell. "Hello, sweetie," she answered. She rarely called me sweetie, so she must have been in a good mood. "Hello yourself, sweetheart," I said, framing the tough private eye. "How about dinner tonight?" "At the club?" "Sounds good. What's the occasion?" "I've got a new case. I want to discuss it with you. It's pretty unusual. I need your female insight." "Now I'm curious. What's this about?" "Tonight," I said. Call me at the office. Call me at the office when you're ready. I'll pick you up at your place." "Okay, sweetie," Mary teased. "See you later." The very private Mountain Center Country Club was not in the city of Mountain Center. The club was situated on an unknown number of acres in a vastly underdeveloped area northeast of the city. MCCC offered golf, tennis, platform tennis, croquet, swimming, skeet shooting, archery, archery, racquetball, and a fitness center, with a full-time masseuse. You could soothe aching muscles with a variety of saunas, whirlpools, and steam baths. A first-class restaurant with a chef who had graduated from Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island, sat atop the third floor of the main building. The club was for the rich. It did not discriminate against color, only gender. It had no female members. Wives of members had full privileges, with the exception of golf and the men's grill. The women had their own grill, off limits to men, and their own pro shop. They could play only on Ladies' Day or with a male member on other days. Men could not play golf on Ladies' Day. Well, there you have it. No Augusta National, but close. I joined the club for a very dumb reason, to play racquetball during the winter. It would probably have been cheaper to build my own court. I played racquetball a couple of times a week, sometimes with Mary and sometimes with Billy. Mary was a really good croquetball player, and almost impossible for me to beat. Billy and I were about even. Occasionally, Billy, Mary, and I would play cutthroat, every person for themselves. Mary always won, even if we tried to gang up on her. Sometimes Big Bob would join us. Big Bob had a membership, compliments of his father, one of the richest men in town. Club rules stated that in any activity you could something that's really grinding my gears at the moment is all of these people have money. All of these people have typically done other things with their lives. I can't speak for everyone. Every person is different. But if you have a better paying job, degrees and so forth, why this? Why demote yourself to a private investigator, to a cop? Not saying those are bad jobs and that you couldn't make a living off that job, or even have private club membership if you wanted such a thing. But if you got money, why would you be doing this? The people I know who have money would never do this. They would never become cops. They became either sports people or about the same thing their parents were doing. And I went to a public school with mostly lawyers and doctors and things like that. Kids. You know, their parents had all kinds of money. And that was the high school you went to. Because your parents had money. Is my complaining making sense? I just don't understand. If I had money, I'd be doing whatever job it was to keep that money. I wouldn't be a cop or a detective or something, because those aren't, I'm sure they're fulfilling for the people who choose to go into that line of work. But it's not well paying most of the time. It's not glamorous. You're looking at dead bodies at all times. It's being a police officer, being a detective. It's more of a necessity job than a one of leisure. If I'm making any sense at all, I'm probably not. It's a lot of hard work, and you get little back for it, except maybe personal satisfaction. If, and that's a big if, you manage to get the bad guy of the day, or the week, or the months, depending on what it is you're actually investigating. But anyway. Club rules stated that in any activity you could only bring a guest twice a month. Since the courts were not in high demand, the rule was not enforced for racquetball. Over the years, I had taken advantage of almost all the club had to offer, with the exception of golf, which I considered a stupid, frustrating game. Golf's okay. It's alright. Mary and I sat in the MCCC restaurant at the corner table for four next to the front window, which overlooked Clubhouse Road, and beyond that, the first tee. The lights in the distant mountain center were beginning to establish themselves as the sun set behind the hills. On the table in front of us was a bottle of Chateau Ste, Michel Sauvignon Blanc for Mary, and a bottle of King's Estate Point Noir for me. Ah, yes, Point Noir. I would probably drink half of my bottle, while Mary might very well finish hers, and then help me with mine without showing the slightest effect. We clinked glasses. So what's the big mystery? She asked. I have a new case, I said. So you told me. Missing person. Again? You said no more missing person cases after last time. This one is a little different, I said. My client is a 13-year-old girl, and the missing person is her mother. Okay, another question I want to raise. It's been a long time since I studied real private investigators. Like I did this, a whole thing for a year in middle school. It was required. In middle school, at least here in my city, now I don't know if this is still true, but at the time I went to middle school. Starting in 6th grade and up until through the 8th grade, we had to pick one thing. There was a theme, and we had to pick one thing that fit that theme and study it all year. And it was a huge project that we did all year and pretty much all of our classes. And when you're a 6th grader, that's an animal. I picked a lion. In 7th grade, I don't actually remember what it was. I think it was a historical event. Something we had to study. Yeah, it was probably that. 'Cause I remember picking, it was something that we had to pick from our birth month, and mine's November. So, and I was born in 1984, so I picked, the election, because that was the first woman running vice president. And then in 8th grade, they made us pick a job. 'Cause this is when they're starting to get, like, you should think about your future career and the jobs and things you want to pursue and get ready to start working crap. I picked private detective because I like mystery books and stuff, and while I wasn't particularly interested in going into that field as a job, I had decided at that point I wanted to be a writer, but you can't really shadow a writer. It's a little more difficult to talk about and explain to somebody who wants you to pick more. I want to be a doctor when I grow up. I want to be a nurse when I grow up. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be, one guy wanted to be a masseuse, and he was really into that. Another guy wanted to be a radio DJ, so he got to go hang out at a DJ station, like one of the, Knoxville area DJ things, which was cool, because I remember waking up one morning and they were talking about him shadowing them on the radio. And I was like, oh, cool, that's the guy for my class. Neat. But anyway, I did study about, private detectives, aside from stuff I already knew about real life detectives. I totally forgot my point. I started ranting about, something and I forgot my point. Oh, yes, I know what my point was now. That's what we're doing at that age, trying to, discover what we want to do with life. I don't remember ever being told or even thinking to ask the private investigator I got to interview if, and I highly doubt they could even do this, take anybody as a client who is not an adult. I'm pretty sure you can't do this. But again, it's a book. I can let it slide, but in real life, I don't think you can do this. That was the point I was trying to make, and that I studied private investigators, so I think I would kind of know. But again, it's been a while. That was 98. Yeah, it's been a while. This is a little different, I said. My client is a 13-year-old girl, and the missing person is her mother. What about the police? She doesn't want the police. She didn't say she didn't want the police. Nowhere in her conversation of talking to you did she say anything about police. Though granted, I guess that could be inferred since she went to you instead of the police. Drugs may be involved. The mother left a goodbye note and vanished to parts unknown. I'm not saying that, Mary said with disgust. Really, I agreed. I told Mary everything I knew, including my conversation with Big Bob. In the meantime, the waiter arrived with her food, sea bass for Mary and salmon for me. Couldn't you have just made this at home? Just get a bottle of wine you both liked and cook at home? Why do you have to go to some fancy club to do this? What are you going to do? Mary asked. First, I'm going to check out the girl and see if her story rings true. I think it will, but you never know. Then I'll need to find her a place to stay. After that, just ask her to stay with a friend and inform the friend's parents of what's going on. And be like, is that cool with you? Let her stay for a bit. If anything weird happens, please call and let us or the cops know. Then I'll need to find her a place to stay. After that, I'll look for the mom. What about our trip to Senior Island with Scott? Mary asked. In early April, Mary had asked for and been granted 2 weeks of vacation from the Mountain Center Police Force. We had made plans to meet Scott Glass and his new trainee flame, Melinda, at Singer Island, Florida. We were supposed to leave the day after tomorrow. Damn, I said. I had completely forgotten about the trip. It's okay, Mary said. We can postpone it. Sean is out sick, and I'm sure Big Bob will be relieved to hear I could stay and work. Sorry, I said. I'll call Scott tomorrow. Never apologize for helping someone, Mary said. It's okay. It's filled with some kind of silly things, and we're taking forever to get to something interesting happening. Basically the same problem with Poltergeist, really. We're taking too long to set up the mystery. Too long to get to know all the characters, when really we should have introduced everybody chapter 1, left out that entirely dumb, pointless prologue, and then set all this up in chapter 2, and then began investigating in chapter 3. Now, granted, wait, I just closed it. How long was chapter? Okay, not even 30 pages. But that's because each chapter, the formatting of the book is weird, so it looks less than it actually is. But, we could have done more, and at the same time said less, because we did good. Having the first thing happen was the girl walks into, that's chapter 1. And then chapter 2, he's talking to a cop. But then chapter 3, he's talking to his wife. And that's about it. We need more than that. And it needs to happen faster. It needs to happen quicker. And that's really my only complaints about the book. I'm honestly not interested in reading any more of it, but if it sounds good to you, and you want to read about something from Caleb's home state, feel free to. I'm Caleb. This has been Red Knot. Thank you for listening. Bye!